It's April 13th, and before I know it, we start talking about what we plan on doing that night. However, once my friend said he wanted to go, as I had not planned to play that night, I did not bring my external battery, and therefore I leave around 2 a.m. and I book a small win of $44, and I'm happy to have a good time playing poker with my friend. It's 16 hours later, and I'm back. I'm sitting down with the max, $500, and this time all in red chips. I sometimes vary my buy-in with greens and blacks, but lately I've been getting 5 stacks of red. I think it gives me some comfort playing with a physically bigger stack, and greens aren't just nearly as satisfying when it comes to stacking my chips. What are your thoughts about this? I sit down at a new table. The guy on my left has headphones on and hasn't really been responding to some of the jokes I've been making at the table. He's been playing pretty aggressively, so I made sure to take note of that. Soon the guy on my right also seems to put his headphones on, so I'm alone with my thoughts, and some pretty lame cards makes me think that it could just be a pretty short night. I'm in the big blind and I look down at 7-8 offsuit. The straddle is live, as it's been mostly throughout this game, and under the gun 1 limps, and out of sheer boredom, and because there already is a limper, I decide to play for $3 more. I'm happy to see the straddle check his option, which means he definitely doesn't have much of a hand given how aggressive he's been with lesser hands. So under the gun 1 is an older man with a medium-sized stack, so one of the smaller stacks at the table, around $200. In the past 15 hands or so that I've been watching, he hasn't gotten involved much, and he especially did not raise at all. So the 3 of us go to the flop, which comes quite favorably to me. 5, 6, 9, rainbow. I flop the joint, and there's no need for me to protect this flop. I check and float, hoping to see action. Unfortunately, both of my table mates have other plans, and they check back. The queen on the turn gives a backdoor flush draw, and also a high card that either of my villains could be happy to see. I make the mistake here of only betting $10 into an $18 pot, as I was cautiously hoping not to scare away both of my opponents. In hindsight, I should have bet $20 or more about pot or over, since this card either connects with my opponents with the queen, or allows for a 9, flush draw, or straight draw to put more money in the pot, thinking I'm trying to blow them off. The under the gun folds, as expected, and under the gun 1 calls. The river comes again, and it's an offsuit ace. And I'm really hoping that under the gun 1 either floated with the ace or now has 2 pair. This is where I again make a mistake of betting too small to the tune of $15. Under the gun 1 calls, and I show my flop straight. And he shows a really unexpected hand. He shows ace queen. Ace queen. How did I not get raised once, especially with the dream run out that he had? To be honest, yes, I missed out on some value with my turn and river sizing, but also I had no idea he was just that strong. If a player's going to play that way, either he read my soul or he just absolutely is not a winning player, but I still chalk this $60 pot as a big fat L. Sad about missing value in that last hand, so going into the next hand, I'm looking to get max value when I look down at ace king offsuit. Hijack opens at $17, and since I'm in the button, I'm looking to play with some deception and trap players who are under the fallacy that everybody in 1-3 3-bets ace king preflop. I'm fairly excited to see when small blind 3-bets at $55. This is definitely a reasonable hand to play a 3-bet pot, especially from position. So when hijack calls quickly, we're suddenly in a nice chunky pot. I'm not going to commit this hand, especially since small blind's range is super wide, and hijack could easily have a solid pocket pair, 7s through jacks. I call looking for an ace or a king on the flop. You can imagine my surprise when I see both an ace and a king on the flop. There are 2 hearts, so I'm not planning on slow playing this. Small blind c-bets for $55 and hijack folds. While there is a non-zero chance small blind could have flopped a set here, it is more likely he has top pair, ace queen or ace jack, or straight or flush draw. He has been very eager to play large pots prior to this hand, and so I do him the favor of raising to $150. I go for a hair under 3 times his bet because I'm in position and this gets the job done. He has about $400 total in the stack, and with a blank turn, I know I can get the rest of his stack in. Small blind thinks about it for 10 seconds before going all in. Oh my gosh. Faced with this decision, I know I have to call, but I've been trying to think through my decisions more and really consider the chance that he has a set. With my ace king, I bought sets of aces and kings, which he only has 1 combination of each of. The most likely holding he has at this point, if he's playing reasonably, is a set of 5s. Small chance he has ace 5-2 pair. I do think he would play all these other hands the same way, and these are all hands that I'd beat. There's also a small chance he has top pair with a good kicker and somehow has put me on a flush draw and wants to commit while he is ahead. There's absolutely no way I'm folding this though, so I call. He looks at me immediately and says, "You have a flush draw?" I think this is good news because I'm no longer looking to fade a heart. But I want to see what he has. And I say, nope, 2 pair, and he suddenly gets uncomfortable and unwilling to show his cards. He indicates he does have top pair, and he is drawing dead, and later says he has ace-10 offsuit. I booked this big win, and suddenly the card dead season feels like a distant memory. During this time, our table gets chosen for lucky table, which means the whole table gets an extra $50, with one lucky seat, which wasn't me, gets $250. That's pretty cool stuff that happens at MGM pretty much every Thursday night. A whole cycle goes by, and I realize my terrible mistake with my camera lens that I used, and I change it back up, so now we're back to that sweet wide angle glory. I'm on the button again and look at a nice playable hand, king-queen offsuit. Hijack opens for $20, and this time I choose the flat. I'm glad to see the limper in that low jack call, and we go 3 ways to the flop. Flop comes again favorably as I hit top pair with a solid king kicker. Hijack is unfazed and c-bets for $40. I don't see any reason to raise since I'm ready to go to showdown, and hands like aces, kings, or queens are still very much in his range. He could also be making this bet to see where he's at with jacks, 10s, or a lower queen, and there's no reason to blow those hands off now when I should probably get value from non-believers on later streets. There's also 1 left to act, and we're hoping he sticks around. There's no obvious draws, so I decide to just call here. Low jack doesn't comply and folds. The turn is a 9, and now hijack slows down and checks. There's a backdoor flush draw now, so I decide to bet since now would be a good time to charge diamonds if they're around, or a lower queen. Unfortunately, it seems like a check raise on the flop or a bet on the turn do the exact same thing, so me overthinking it doesn't really matter, and hijack folds. I don't know what he had, but something tells me I could have perhaps checked back the turn and eked out a little more value on the river. I'm now a pretty big stack at the table, and I'm happy with my position here. I get some playable hands, including pocket deuces and 5s, which are fun to play pre-flop, but are easy let goes when you go set mining and you just don't hit it. The next playable hand I get is ace-9 suited, which I look at from under the gun. It's a hand I consider in my opening range from any position. It may be a little bit loose from under the gun, but with these tables, I don't see any real big issue with it. But the issue I do see becoming a leak is when I call the 3-bet. However, it's important to note that this 3-bet is coming from under the gun 1, the same player that jammed on me with ace-10 earlier. Given that it is this player, I'm all for a gamble with him, as I could easily have a better starting hand than this player. In fact, last time he also raised a $55 with ace-10 offsuit, which is a bit loose. Perhaps he is doing this again with a good ace, so I'm definitely cautious and hoping to just see spades. I call, hoping for yet again a favorable flop against this player. The flop comes ace high, which isn't terrible. There's also 1 spade, which I'm encouraged to see. Unfortunately, the middle card is not a 9, but it is a 10. If the player is choosing the exact same line as the last hand, then I'm quite dead in the water. I can, however, see a turn, because there is at least 1 spade, and there's a good chance I can stack the player again if I hit backdoor spades. Unfortunately, what's different about this hand is that I'm out of position, so I check to him and he bets $55 again. Exact same bet as he had chosen before. I call, hoping to see a black turn. And a black turn I ask for, a black turn I get. We see the 8 of clubs on the turn, and I'm ready to give up this hand with any further pressure. Not only am I completely dead against ace-10 offsuit now, but there's a sizable chance he could have ace-jack, ace-queen, ace-king. And now he also beats me with ace-8, let alone ace-3. I check, and he doesn't disappoint at all, making my decision almost no decision at all, jamming all in for about 2 times the pot with $440. Of course, I run through the idea of a nice hero call to get the respect of this table, but I don't see any way I'm not beat here. The only thing I can see a hand that he's doing this with that I do beat are kings and queens, but I don't really see why he would commit his whole stack to that. I fold. He shows ace-9 of clubs before mucking. Wow, what an incredible turn for him. While we would have chopped with any non-club river, I am quite happy about this fold. I did not see that coming, but it makes entire sense with the way he's been playing. Seeing the clubs on the turn, he must have figured that he was beat at that moment and was drawing to the nuts and wanted to maximize fold equity if I had a higher ace. Little did either of us know that we had the exact same hand. However, with the turn, he was essentially free rolling, and I have no doubt a club probably would have showed up if I had decided to call, which objectively would have always been a bad decision. I get king-queen offsuit yet again on the next button and play the exact same way by calling the opening bet. The opener is a young guy who had just sat down a few hands ago with a $250 stack, which makes him one of the shorter stacks at the table. Keeping this in mind, his first open, I'm watching with more attention. If he has a good hand, I expect his entire stack to go in the pot. After I call, the big blind also decides to come with. I'm very happy with this flop, which comes King, king, 10. I flop trips. Both players check to me, and I don't see any reason to slow play this because it would actually be harder to derive value from this hand on later streets if I don't start building the pot now. Aces, queens, jacks, and even a 10 would definitely call a smaller bet and potentially be a non-believer for future value if I play the later streets with deception. In fact, what I've noticed about 1-3 is that buttons almost always feel like they have to bet the flop when it gets checked to them with this kind of board dynamic. So since the newer player has no clue of my abilities, I'm perfectly willing for him to think that I'm following the same pattern. I bet $10. Big blind folds and hijack calls quickly. Heck yeah, got him on the hook. The turn comes a blank, but there's now a backdoor club draw. Hijack then decides to lead turn with $20. This is also a small bet and to me seems like more of a see where I'm at kind of bet. I'm not going to try to let him know now where he's probably at, which is not very good against me, so I call. Hoping to see a blank on the river, which is not a 9, club, or ace, but also okay with calling down a smaller river bet if those cards were to come. We head to a river, which is a 6 of spades. A complete blank. I'm confident that I have the best hand now, unless hijack has been min-valuing an ace-king, which is pretty unlikely due to his check call on the flop and small bet on the turn. At this point, hijack struggles a bit with his chips, and he counts out $45 to lead the river. I pick up a live tell that he's trying to value bet the river and sort of name his size, and I'm fairly confident at this point that he has queens, jacks, or a 10. This half pot size seems to feel a bit like a blocker bet. In the past, I usually would play this kind of river safe and just call in case he does have something that beats me. But there are obviously a lot of hands that do beat me, like ace, king, 7, 9, 10s, 8, 6, but none of those hands seems particularly plausible in this situation. Also, since he bet $45, he leaves about $130 behind. If he really had me beat, I should see most of those chips in the pot, right? Does he really think he can get max value from me with this bet? Wouldn't he want to polarize himself with an overbet or check raise the river? Or even check raise a turn? Shouldn't he naturally put me at least on a king if I'm a hand that he could possibly cooler against? Combined with a live tell of hand weakness and the range I've narrowed him down on, I knew to get it done I only had one move. I jammed for about an extra $130 on top, and now hijack goes in the tank. While this was an overbet, considering the pot size, with how short of a stack he is, this isn't really all too surprising. He starts talking out loud and is very confused by the overbet, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I went all in because he was short stacked and that it would have effectively been the same thing as a pot size bet. Additionally, given the fact that he led on the river, I was given a lot more rope to up the ante. He thinks about it for maybe a whole minute and suddenly out loud comes to the decision that I have a 7 of clubs.
Is it caught? Oh, got it.
He then puts in his stack and I show him the goods. He mucks his cards. In retrospect, I could have tried to go for more on the flop or turn since the overbet pot sizing was a little bit of a reach and strictly asked for a hero call mindset from my opponent. However, my poor play pays off and I scoop a nice pot.
Hold on.
Oh my god, what just happened? I think I took that one.
Alright, you don't look at it, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't look at anything. Sorry. With checking out my big stack and all my vlogging juggling, I accidentally grabbed the card to my right, so I have 3 cards in front of me. The dealer catches me before I look at the cards, but there's a little bit of a fumble before I hand the guy back his card, whoever knowing if it was the right one. I look down at a playable hand from the button, ace-4 offsuit, but it seems like the cutoff really liked whatever I gave him because he opens to $50. Biggest open so far, and this headphones guy could have just been really oblivious to what just happened, or he could be playing because of what just happened. I'm pretty surprised at this point, and I fold out of sheer confusion. The flop later comes ace high, and he said he didn't have an ace, so I'm assuming I gave him back his jack for pocket jacks or something like that. For my sanity, I'm all for this pre-flop laydown. Can ace-king do it again? I'm in the cutoff this point, and I look down at the great hand, ace-king offsuit. Hijack in the headphones, same guy, opens to $30, which is a pretty big open as well. And given this big opening size and also how deep we both are for this 1-3 game, I choose the lower variance option and I just flat his open. A 3-bet would have definitely been a smart move too, but I wasn't entirely sure how wild this player was since I hadn't really seen him showdown with anything out of line. The flop comes Queen Jack 8, so I flop 2 overs and a gut shot. When low jack bets $30, I'm suspicious he's trying to keep me in with the queen, although he can probably have a similar hand to myself, like ace-king. I call, hoping to see a 10, ace, or king on the turn, and when the turn comes a jack, it should really be better from my open call range, but the aggressor doesn't stop, this time betting half pot, again, $60 into the $120 pot. While I shouldn't get in the habit of folding my hand since this could be a leak that this player could take advantage of, I am no longer drawing to the nuts, and if I miss on the river, he is absolutely barreling for a third time. Also, I could already be drawing dead if he boated up on this turn, and an ace or a king on the river could just lose me a lot more money. I lay this down, and I hope for a better spot soon. And a better spot does come immediately the next hand, when I look down at pocket jacks. Headphones guy has been on a serious run, but he decides it's time to lower his opening size to $17. I 3-bet to $50, a hair under 3 times his bet. Everyone folds back to the low jack, and he calls quickly, and we go to a flop of 10, 5, deuce, rainbow, leaving me with an overpair. He checks to me, and I look to bet for some protection because a higher card on the turn of the river would really slow down action. So I put $60 into the pot, a little over half. He doesn't take too long to fold, and I'm glad I finally took a pot from the villain to my right. Thanks for sticking around to the end of my second vlog. This is the last hand of the night. As I'm already starting to pack up, I again miss filming my beautiful pocket aces, which reels me back for a final hand, hoping to leave with a nice, respectful bang. I'm in the big blind, and there are 4 limpers to me. I raised to $20, which really isn't big enough, and should be more like $35. But I do get 2 callers, which I'm happy about, and I'm hoping to get max value from on later streets. I'm especially eyeing the button as the stack is about 115, and after the pre-flop call, only has less than $100 in his stack. The flop isn't great. It's Jack 10-8 rainbow, as either of my opponents could easily have flopped a straight with 7-9 suited, Queen 9 suited, and there's a variety of 2-pair combinations there as well. However, there's still plenty of hands that include Jack that either of my opponents could still have. I decide to play this flop passively, and we check to the button, who bets $30 into the $60 pot. It folds to me. I decide to put him to the test and put him all in for his remaining about $100. He calls fairly quickly, as I would expect him to do with pretty much any of the hands I detailed, and he turns over 10-8 offsuit for a flopped bottom 2 pair, which, to be honest, is quite a loose call when it's offsuit, but that's where I make the mistake of betting too small pre-flop. He holds, and I ship a stack of reds in his direction before I rack up for the night. Thanks for watching my second vlog. There is definitely much more to come. For tonight's session, I was in for $500 and out for $13.14 for a decent profit of $814. I wasn't put in too many tough spots and generally just ran good. In the future, I want to continue to capitalize on my good sessions and keep everything in perspective when variance hits me the other way. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.